What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I want to go ahead and been a while since I did this. I completed the centers list, and I've completed the small forwards list, but still I go through point guards, shooting guards, and power forwards. So I want to go ahead and knock out shooting guards. So I'm going to do my top 15 all-time shooting guards, starting from number 15, going all the way up to number 1. All right. So at number 15, I have Tracy McGrady. I know a lot of people have issues with Tracy, and I know there's going to be people that think that as the list progresses, maybe I should have had other people. You know, I get all of that. At the end of the day, Tracy McGrady was one of the most revolutionary basketball players in the history of the game. It's hard to believe this now, but Tracy McGrady, you know, we had never seen a guy like him. He was the prototype to a guy like KD. You know, at the time, we'd never seen a guy Tracy McGrady's height, which was 6'8", and his length, be able to handle the basketball like that. We hadn't seen that yet. Now, of course, we went on and had KD, who's 6'9", 6'10", really 6'10 and a half, 7+ foot, 7'2" wingspan. You know, handle the rock like he did all-time career. And now we got Victor Wembanyama, who's still growing, 7'5" now. I mean, the game has just evolved so much since Tracy McGrady, but at the time, you know, he was revolutionary. And yeah, from a team perspective, he's disappointing. All right, he never got the first round of playoffs. Never got the first round of playoffs as a significant player. Now, I do think as a Spur, when he really didn't get much minutes, I think they got out the first round that year, but I can't recall. I think that was 2013, but didn't get much playing time. But anyway, yeah, that's the big knock on Tracy McGrady is the injuries that plagued the last third or so of his career and the lack of playoff success. But I do want to say this in Tracy McGrady's defense. A lot of people don't hold that against Pete Maravich. Pete Maravich was a very revolutionary player, prolific scoring machine. His pro career didn't quite match his collegiate career, but it was still a great career. But he never advanced past the first round. He only played in 26 playoff games in his career. And we don't hold it against Pete Maravich because of what? Time. And, you know, with McGrady, there's recency bias. Look, this is one thing you can't hold against McGrady. In the 2000s, he was one of the best scorers the game saw. One of the prerequisites to being in the Hall of Fame is, at least for a decade or so, show dominance. And Tracy McGrady did do that. Until his back started giving out in the late 2000s. From 2000 to 2008, he averaged 26.3 points, 6.4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.8 blocks. He played almost 39 minutes a night, shot 43.6% from the floor, which in today's era would be pretty poor. But, you know, per the era, the average field goal percentage is around 44, 45. So what would that be today? 45% shooting maybe? Still a little bit low. For his era, he took quite a few three-point attempts, almost 5 attempts per game. Shot 34% from 3, which was not bad for the era he played in. 75% three-point shooter. For his career, Tracy McGrady averaged 19.6 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game. I already said that. Oh, yeah, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Excuse me. That was for his peak. For his career, 19.6 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, and 4.5 assists per contest. He scored 18,381 points, 5,276 rebounds he corralled. He dished out 4,161 assists. And he, of course, is a Hall of Famer. Many people wonder whether he should have been first ballot. I think in any other year he probably would have been second ballot or something like that, like a Reggie Miller. But the year that he got in was very weak, if my memory serves me correctly. It was a very weak class. So I don't have any qualms in him being first ballot because of the year that he was eligible. Now, when you look at his resume, he was a 7-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-NBA First-Teamer, 3-time All-NBA Second-Teamer, 2-time All-NBA Third-Teamer. Twice he led the NBA in scoring. That was the peak of his powers with the Orlando Magic. He was the NBA's most improved player during the 2000-2001 season. After his career was over in the NBA, if you recall, he played in the CBA and he was an All-Star in 2013. His number one is retired by the Quindile Eagles, and they are a Chinese professional team, professional basketball team, and he was voted Mr. Basketball USA in 1997 and McDonald's All-American 1997, First Team Parade All-American in 1997. Now, I know prior to these videos, I didn't say the collegiate accolades, but I went ahead and changed my mind. I'm going to include those. For his career, in his prime, McGrady was listed as 6'8", 210 pounds. But later on, as he got older, he weighed about 225 pounds. And he went to high school in Durham, North Carolina. And he went to Mount Zion Christian Academy. He was one of the few players in the history of the NBA to go directly from high school to the pros. He was in the era where high school basketball players did not go directly to the pros and start. That wasn't what was done. It was still a merit system, and basically you had to wait your turn for the most part. Kobe did it. Garnett was on a very poor team, but even with Garnett, when he went to the Timberwolves, he didn't come right out and be a star and shoot the ball 16, 15 times at least, or so. But anyway, Tracy McGrady was born in 1979 in Florida, and he was raised by his mother, Roberta. And as a youth, he played high school basketball and baseball. And it was, like I said, at Mount Zion Christian Academy in Durham, North Carolina, where he transferred from Auburndale High School his senior year. During his final year at Auburndale, McGrady posted averages of 23.1 points, 12.2 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4.9 blocks per game. His senior year averages were 27.5 points, 8.7 rebounds, 7.7 assists, 2.8 steals, and 2 blocks per game. Now, initially, McGrady considered playing college basketball at the University of Kentucky, but he ultimately decided to enter the NBA draft because of the fact that he was a projected lottery pick. It was getting a lot of buzz in that 97 draft. McGrady was selected as the 9th overall pick by the Toronto Raptors in the 1997 NBA draft. One thing that was not known at the time, but has come out, is that Tracy McGrady almost was traded to the Chicago Bulls. if memory serves me correctly, he was almost traded to the Chicago Bulls that summer. And what was going to happen is he was going to be traded essentially for Scottie Pippen. Because at the time, the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, Jerry Krause, was thinking about the future. He was thinking about breaking up the dynasty then. Michael Jordan nixed that because he said that he would not be part of a rebuilding process and would retire immediately if Scottie Pippen was traded. So that nixed that trade. For most of the 1997-98 season, he received very little playing time, averaging only 13 minutes per game under then head coach Darrell Walker, who was in his NBA days known as a defensive guard. He didn't get much playing time his rookie year. During the 1998-99 season, the Raptors acquired Vince Carter. And if you remember at that time, Vince Carter was increasingly being marketed as the post-Michael Jordan face of the NBA. They tried to go with the Jordan angle. They were trying to push him as the new Jordan. You know, I remember they would show freeze frames of Michael dunking and Vince dunking and imply that Vince was even more athletic, higher upside, and all this other shit. And, of course, Vince and Tracy are distant cousins. And they formed, Vince Carter and Tracy Mcgrady, they formed a bit of a dynamic duo by the 1999-2000 season. And they both gave, well, really Vince gave a memorable performance in the 2000 Slam Dunk Contest, but Tracy McGrady did too. During the 99-2000 season, Tracy McGrady was briefly in the contention for Sixth Man of the Year award before he became a starter later in that season. During the 2000, after that season, Tracy McGrady was a free agent. And ultimately, he signed with the wanting to branch out and be his own man because Vince was going to be the man in Toronto. He loved his cousin, but he wanted to be his own guy. He knew that he could be a star somewhere. So he signed with the Orlando Magic. Grant Hill, who at the time was thought to be coming off of a minor foot injury, signed with the Orlando Magic. And Tim Duncan came that close to signing with the Orlando Magic. But Doc Rivers fucked everything up by denying Tim Duncan the opportunity to be able to fly his family in. If I'm not mistaken, he wanted his family to travel with him to the Orlando Magic facility, and Doc wouldn't allow it, whatever. That plus a conversation with David Robinson at the last minute changed Tim Duncan's mind, and he stayed with the Spurs. But still, even with that, the combination of Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady was supposed to be a great team, all right? But and ironically, Grant Hill would have been more or less in the Michael Jordan role, and Tracy McGrady would have been the Scotty. But Grant Hill, as we all know, that foot injury was a lot worse than previously thought. And ultimately, he would struggle with it for years. Surgery after surgery, coming back getting hurt again, nearly dying from a staph infection. And ultimately, I think after 4 years, he finally got healthy and was a consistent role player in the NBA when he came back, but he was never the same player, Grant Hill, after that. And you just have to wonder what could have been had his prime not been ruined by injuries, you know. But anyway, during the 2000-2001, McGrady defied the expectations of many, emerging as one of the best players in the NBA. And McGrady's play earned him his first All-Star game appearance, and behind averages of 26.8 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 4.6 assists per game, He was selected to his first All-NBA team and being named to the All-NBA second team. He was voted the NBA's most improved player. For the 2001-2002 season, McGrady averaged 25.6 points, 7.9 rebounds, and 5.3 assists per game. But it was the next season, that he really went to another level. In 2002-2003, he averaged 32.1 points per game. And what was so impressive about that at the time was this wasn't the NBA today, all right? It was a lot more difficult to score compared to today in that NBA. It was real defenses. Hand checking had been disallowed, but you still could be physical. You still could put elbows on guys, knock guys off stride, move guys from the space that they want to be in as far as going into their offensive moves and whatnot. You can knock guys off stride and make them uncomfortable, and make it harder to score. Not impossible, but just harder. For Tracy to still average 32 points a game that season was amazing. The year before, Tracy had a 50-point game against the Washington Wizards. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was that season or the next season where he had a 62-point game. I think that was against the Wizards too, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember who it was, but he had a 62-point game. It might have been 2000. You know what? It might have been a little bit later, like 2004. But I do remember him having a 62-point game. I think it was against the Wizards. But anyway, the next couple of years he would average 32 and then 28, winning another scoring title. But ultimately, after the 2004 season, he went to play in Houston. And it was thought that the combination of him and Yao Ming may prove to be a championship-winning combination. But that wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. And although he did have an amazing moment in one regular season game against the Spurs where he scored 13 points in like 33 seconds, including the game-winning three. One of the most amazing things you probably see it on YouTube. You want to look it up. But after 2005, Tracy McGrady began to suffer more and more from injuries, back spasms. He tended to starts having issues chronically with his back, and they got worse. And by the late 2000s, the injuries began to take a toll on him, and he began losing his athleticism, a lot of his athleticism, and that team ultimately was disbanded. The last few years of his career, Tracy McGrady was more or less a role player. He spent some time with the Knicks, the Pistons, the Hawks, and he spent 1 year playing over in China, as I said. He was a star over in China, averaging 25 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and almost 2 steals. Spent a campaign in the CBA. And then late in the 2012-13 season, he signed with the Spurs and tried to win a championship. But that particular year, that's the year they lost in 7 to the Miami Heat. And McGrady was denied an opportunity to win a championship. As a matter of fact, he was denied even playing any minutes in that NBA Finals. And later that year, he announced his retirement from the NBA. So I'm like this. I think Tracy McGrady is definitely one of the best players in the history of the NBA. But he could have been greater. He could have been greater. Injuries definitely took a lot of games away from him. He should have scored at least 25,000 points in his career. It's still a stain on his legacy that he was never able to get out of the first round. But on the flip side, we cannot take away the great moments that this man had during the 2000s. And there was a time period where we got to admit, I'd say from 2002 to 2004, maybe, going into 2005, there was a time when there was a legit argument as to who was the better shooting guard, Tracy McGrady or Kobe Bryant. At least at that time. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Number 15 to me, all-time shooting guard, Tracy McGrady.